So, if you didn't see my last video, you'll be lost. This is again regarding James Garrison, who was the Attorney General who prosecuted Clay Shaw, and he was going to prosecute the other people involved in murdering JFK. They were all gay. So Clay Shaw was. This is Clay Shaw. He was considered the queen bee in the gay circles. Okay, I don't know. David and Clay Shaw was part of CIA. David Ferry, he was gay. Oswald, they called him a switch hitter because he couldn't satisfy his wife. But then there were other people, because Garrison, I'm reading here from, not from any JFK files, but the guy that went after this, he ended up dead before he could go after him. So Garrison, the prosecutor, said that they killed him with an overdose. But Clay Shaw, he went after. But there were two people that confirmed that also Jack Ruby was gay, and he had a nickname in the gay circles as Pinky. But he actually, so he was tied to the mob too, this guy David Ferry. So it says here, Ferry worked as a private investigator and pilot for the New Orleans mob boss, Carlos Marcello, an avowed Kennedy Klan enemy, and in fact it was Ferry who flew Marcello back to New Orleans after Attorney General RFK had him deported from Cuba following the collapse of the Batista regime. During this period, the mob and the CIA shared a vested interest in overthrowing Castro, and so Ferry meshed well within this murky milieu, having worked as a CIA contract pilot, in addition to training paramilitary troops in Lake Pontchartrain, all part of the anti-Castro CIA-funded operation. Ferry, it so happens, also worked for Guy Bannister. This is Guy Bannister. He was a former FBI. And again, that's David Ferry, and over there is Oswald. So let's see, it goes on to say that, so he also worked for Guy Bannister on in the Lafayette Street office, and it was there where that they probably associated with Lee Oswald. During the 50s, Ferry served as a youth group leader in a branch of the Louisiana Civil Air Patrol. During Garrison's investigation, one of Ferry's former CAP cadets, John Civarolo, came forward with a photo showing Oswald with a group of other youths at a CAP outing in David Ferry's presence, which was indeed curious, as under Garrison's questioning, Ferry had repeatedly denied any relationship with Oswald. During the course of this CAP career, Ferry had gathered a group of young men around him, including cadets from his unit, and on occasion had taken nude photos of the boys and exposed them to pornographic movies. One of these young men, upset by Ferry's sexual advances, filed a suit against him, which eventually led to Ferry's dismissal from Eastern Airlines, where he was employed during the 50s. Also, they found Ferry's library card. It was discovered among the contents of Oswald's wallet. Further evidence that the two of them definitely had a clandestine relationship. So it goes on to say here then, Ferry died under the considered curious circumstances. The reporters stated that he had succumbed to a brain aneurysm, although detectives at the scene discovered 2 unsigned suicide notes. Garrison speculated that Ferry had been force-fed a fatal dose of his thyroid medicine. With Ferry out of the picture, Garrison shifted his focus to Clay Shaw, director of the New Orleans International Trade Mart, whom he indicted in early 1967 based on witness testimony, placing Shaw in the company of Ferry and Oswald at the meetings where JFK assassination plot was purportedly hatched, which was where Ferry, who was the guy who showed, Oswald, him, yeah, mainly them. There may have been some other people, but them being the main ones. So Ferry ended up dead. Oswald was obviously dead. And then Guy Bannister, who was connected to Ferry, who was the FBI, who he had died of a heart attack. So this was the only one he could go after. But then as he was investigating all this, Garrison identified, that's where he found out that he was considered the queen bee in the New Orleans gay community. And according to Garrison, was part of a ritualistic homosexual fraternity that included Ferry and Oswald. According to journalist James Phelan, in an effort to get Garrison's story into focus, I asked him the motive of the Kennedy conspirators. He told me the murder at Dallas has been a homosexual plot. They had the same motive as Leopold or Loeb and Leopold when they murdered Bobby Franks in Chicago back in the 20s. Garrison said it was a homosexual thrill killing, plus the excitement of getting away with the perfect crime. John Kennedy was everything that David Ferry was not. A successful, handsome, popular, wealthy man. You can just picture the charge Ferry got out of plotting his death. I asked how he had learned that the murder was a homosexual plot. Quote, look at the people involved, Garrison said. David Ferry, homosexual. Clay Shaw, homosexual. Jack Ruby, homosexual. Ruby was a homosexual? Sure, we dug that out, Garrison said. His homosexual nickname was Pinky. That was confirmed by 2 people, too. So that's 3 of them. Then there's Lee Harvey Oswald. But Oswald was married and had 2 children, I pointed out. He was a switch hitter who couldn't satisfy his wife. That's all in the Warren report. And then there were other people in a deposition, Brochure, who claimed to have once roomed with David Ferry in New Orleans, testified that Ferry, Shaw, and Oswald, and this other one, Thornley, were all part of a homicidal homosexual clique that conspired to kill Kennedy. According to Brochures, he was introduced to Thornley by Ferry and claimed that he had had sex with Carrie and knew well his slender hips. While it can't be denied that Thornley possessed slender hips, I've never come across anything to suggest that he was homosexual or bisexual for that matter. Although Carrie they're talking about is Carrie Thornley. Carrie Thornley was extremely open-minded in regards to sexual experimentation. He married once and had a long string of girlfriends over the years, but never once did I hear any thing of a same-sex alliances aside from the seemingly spurious remarks of Reverend Raymond Brochures. In August 1968, Garrison staffer James Allock recorded Brochure's deposition, of which the following is an excerpt. Question, do you recognize this man in the picture here? That is a man whom David Ferry constantly referred to as Carrie Thornley. And this person here, yes, that's Carrie Thornley. Where did you meet him? At Lafayette's exile, and I don't know what. He always maintained that he was not a homosexual. David Ferry had told me numerous times that Carrie Thornley maintains he is not a homosexual, but I say he is, and I say to the whole world he is. And I say to the whole world, if he is not a homosexual, why was he in homosexual bars? You're only in homosexual bars if you're gay. So it seems that since they were all gay, that it may go back to that. Something to do with all that. But then I just wonder, because JFK's best friend that lived in the White House, if it had anything to do with all that too. Not that he was ever gone after or looked at. Will we ever know?